Ah, 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 ah. Oh, it's too much white for this early. That's too much. Ah, ah.
Depositors, or do they not have to? And I think that's really going to be what'll show whether that's
I
true.
don't think they need to. Do they need to?
Well, that's the issue. I mean, if you look at the CDs, for
Arigato.
example, of some of the big banks, they're
Arigato,
much
arigato,
lower than the smaller
arigato,
banks. They're only like
arigato.
3.75% for, say $200,000 or $100,000.
You've got this valuation hit for the regionals.
Yeah.
Then, Tom, you've got these profit headwinds that are very
No
different
idea
to the
what
kind of
she's
headwinds
saying.
that are going to face the major players on Wall Street.
That's the dynamics that are out there right now. And of course, it is an era of capitalism in banking. Any of you that listen to me have known, and John's got the surveillance cork over there to put it in my mouth at any time.
The what?
I possibly
What?
have
What?
some of these banking
What?
exercises, our marketing plans, wrapped around a gauze of a bank.
What is
This
he?
morning,
Yo, what did I wake up
story,
to?
Laura Burr, Jennifer Serrain, Max Reyes, and Aaron Choi put
Like
out
the
a
fuck did he say?
definitive story for Bloomberg on the real
They're putting
estate
what in your mouth, my
ballet
dude?
of these troubled banks, piecing it together. Sri Natarajan joins us here. And this goes from the zip codes of Beverly Hills
Heyo.
to the Hamptons. The maps, Sri,
Hampton.
are what are devastating. Explain not the con job, but the free lunch that was given.
Free.
You're a fancy hitter, way above John.
Where'd it go? I beat the second alarm.
First Republic is going to jump in and offer you interest-only loans.
Steroid?
Now, we'll all remember back in the global financial crisis, 2008, when you think about the real estate bubble, the kind of loans that were the speculative loans that were being offered for the purchases being made. Those are risky lenders. It's a very different dynamic here. First Republic is a bank that had marked a niche for itself by catering to the wealthy and the uber wealthy.
Where's my
They went
coffee?
out there and offered these interest-only loans where you're only paying interest for the first 10 years. You're not even recouping principal for a third of your regular mortgage period of 30 years. And unfortunately, what has
Carpool,
changed
shut
from
up.
2020, 2021,
Nobody
what
wants
you
to
were
hear
just
that
talking
shit,
about,
dog.
Lisa, we've gone from zero interest
My
rates
boy
to about
Carpool
5%
talking
interest
all that
rates. These
nonsense.
loans have lost value. So unlike Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank, where the securities portfolio of these banks were the real trouble, at First Republic, it's something else. It is really their real estate mortgage, the jumbo loans that they were making, about 20 billion plus hit just on these
It's not
types of
down
loans
there, dude.
on their
Where'd I put
mortgage
it?
book. And that's a problem, and clearly why we haven't really seen an easy solution for First Republic yet.
So I got $7.7 million property in Southampton.
You got a what, my dude?
Loan is a mortgage, right, from the bank. And do I understand our reporting is principal repayment on that was delayed 10 years often?
That's a lot of money.
And that's one way to attract customers, and they got some of the biggest names on
What do you
Wall
say,
Street to
Monday?
bank with them,
Nah,
including
dude,
bankers from
shower
other
day-
prominent
shower day is
institutions
strictly
who
on
want to take out their
Fridays.
mortgage with First Republic, because these are all people who are trying to make sure that they can save that extra
So
penny
the
and
fir-
invest it
The,
wisely.
John, the First National Bank of Abramowitz is coming in to pick up this loan portfolio. Am I right? There's nothing to pick up?
It's impossible when you have a $27 billion hole in your balance sheet, twice the size of your equity. You're really looking at anyone even coming in with paying $0 per share, still having to take a $13 billion write down. Why would you do that unless there are some really good sweeteners added in there by the government?
Let's take a look at State Street. So State Street right now, net flows disappoint. The stock is getting absolutely hammered, I have to say. It's down about 7% in the pre-market at the moment. Net interest income came in a little bit lighter than expected as well. There's a really interesting headline here that I'd love, Sri, for you to translate. The deposit into FRC resulted in a $29 million provision for State Street. Can you just translate what's been going on over the last month with these financial institutions getting together and trying to support First Republic?
It's a very interesting dynamic. So last month we had 11 of the largest banks in the country, including State Street through JP Morgan, pulling together some $30 billion in deposits, their own cash, and saying we will park it with First Republic. It was supposed to be a sign of confidence. But unfortunately, how accounting rules work is it's not just on loans that you have to take provision. You have to be willing to take provisions for any place where you can see a possibility of a loss. And even though this is not a signal that First Republic is not going to return their money, the rules are such that most of the banks that took part in this exercise had to take a roughly 2% provision. At State Street, it sounds like about $30 million, but at some of the bigger banks, it's closer to 100, a little more. Yes, First Republic, this is not a sign that First Republic will not be able to return their money, but at the same time, it is an acknowledgement that the move, that public relations exercise, that confidence building exercise was not entirely risk-free.
There are a couple different issues that are coming out with some of these earnings. Some people saying that the First Republics, we started talking about their interesting mortgage scheme, how there are a number of poorly managed banks or those that took on undue risk, and that they haven't fully been worked out of the weeds yet. And then you have the profitability issue that we're seeing with State Street. From your assessment, which is the more pressing narrative that you think accurately reflects?
I watch this
whatever
stuff
kind
because
of
I invest.
banking situation we're in right now?
It certainly still is the issue with the regional banks. The way we're describing the whole scenario that's panned out over the last few weeks. We've gone from calling it the banking crisis to a crisis for some banks, and that is entirely the case. We've already seen a couple of banks fold. We will most certainly see a wave of M&A that will follow after we get certain clarity.
I just took my
and
creatine.
as Jamie Dimon and Warren Buffett and others have said, there will most likely be a few other banks that will
I
still
took my
fail.
steroids.
Investors are trying to figure out which those banks will be. Those
I
banks
took my
are
multi.
probably going out there and trying to find out rescue solutions or inject liquidity into their balance sheet so that they can ride this out. But there is still some trouble on that front. Everyone seems convinced that the domino effect that could affect the entire system has perhaps, the risk of that has lessened, but that doesn't mean that there aren't some banks that will still go through a world of pain.
Sorry, just a final question then. What are the banks this week that you're focused on? Now, traditionally, you'd just say Bank of America, Goldman, Morgan Stanley, but seemingly that's changed this year. What are you focused on?
It's incredible. Like every bank earnings seasons, you are looking at the biggest banks in the country, whether it's a major investment bank like a Goldman Sachs or a Morgan Stanley, or you're looking at a JP Morgan to get a health of the corporates in the country, to get a health of to get a pulse on the consumer. This year, unfortunately, while we're all paying attention to these bank earnings, everyone's really interested in the flurry of regional bank earnings that we will see in the days after the big banks report, because that's where the problem still remains, and that's where all the attention is focused.
Is it a name like Western Alliance later this week? Is that something you'd look at? Which names will you be looking at?
We would definitely look at a name like that, and also every other bank whose stock got hammered.
Yeah.
First Republic might have lost 90% of its market value this year, most of that in March alone, but there were several other banks that are severely off their mark from the start of March.
First Republic, I believe, on the 24th. I think so, a week from today. Sri, thank you. Just wonderful.
Thank you.
Some really, really interesting stories here, Brahma. We've got to work our way through. The big banks are doing great. We can see that in the numbers on Friday. JP Morgan, Wells Fargo City, going to hear from Bank of America tomorrow. We've got it. Clear. Message received. What about the others?
Well, and that's why the reason why you mentioned State Street was so interesting, because their net interest margins came down or were not as high as expected. Their provisions for loan losses much higher than previously expected.
Still sees a share buyback program of up to 4.5 billion for 2023. So no changes at first look to the capital return expectations. Tom.
I'd look for bank consolidation, which will make Shree's job early. He's only working like a 35-hour work week as it is, and he'll be able to cut it down to 32 hours
I would see that
with bank consolidation.
that lazy over in the banking team. Yeah, I hear the same
Fewer
thing. Not at all. Sri, thank you. Thank you, sir. Equity futures on the S&P, positive 1/10% on the S&P 500. David Bain at Citi joining us next. We've got another busy week ahead. This is Bloomberg.
Fixing things that go wrong and smoothing out bumps in the road is what customers expect from energy providers. And for Duke's Renewable Assets, that process is overseen from one room in an office building in Charlotte, North Carolina. Brian Savoy showed me around the company's Renewable Control Center.
This is where our operators are monitoring and managing over 5,000 megawatts of renewables across the United States.
How would this differ from like a conventional asset monitoring center?
Yeah, so assets, historically, they would have the monitoring center on site. So you might have an operator with screens, but at the site. Whereas this, we can do 90 sites. There's offshore wind, onshore wind, solar, and they're looking for the smallest change in output because every megawatt hour is money. When one of these assets isn't producing full capacity, we're putting another resource on, and we're having to toggle this on a consistent basis. And this, as clouds come, this is by the minute. This is not, or the hour it's off. No, it's by the minute, and then it'll fall, come back, and we have assets that follow this digitally as well, so that we can keep a consistent flow of electrons on the grid.
Welcome to the world of decentralized finance.
You can see the massive gains for the OG crypto coin.
Breakout we have all perhaps long awaited, finally realized. We'll see if it sticks.
Bloomberg's covering all things crypto, the people,
There's no question this industry is composed of some bad actors and some good actors.
the transactions,
Volumes have surpassed $24 billion per day.
and the technology.
Stop talking about the technology, start demonstrating the utility.
Bloomberg Crypto, Tuesdays.
So what's the best investment advice you've ever been given by anybody? The compound
And
compounding of returns is an incredible
let's see what time it is.
miracle of business finance.
30 seconds, boys. 29,
Everything you learn is
28,
additive every day.
27,
You keep at it and don't
26,
quit.
25,
It's an incredible
24,
miracle. And it's not
23.
just interest.
Well,
It
you
was
get the
always
gist of
said
it.
about compound interest returns, compound business returns, compound human returns. They're all very additive because you learn every day. And if you keep at it, it's very, very
and
helpful.
In your observation of
Now.
investors, what do you think is the biggest mistake that average investors make?
Selling at the wrong time.
And they sell when the prices go down?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
I heard it
Not
click.
Keeping,
I heard it
people have
click.
conviction. Or the
I heard it
investors invest for the right
click.
reasons.
I don't have to do anything.
Just keep-
I heard it click. I heard it click. Bitch, we got it.
Access the financial world on demand.
Hey, I win, dude.
Hear from leading economists, policymakers, and industry experts via live and on-demand webinars. Only from Bloomberg. Start exploring to see what's moving the markets. Visit Bloomberg.com webinars.
The market has been climbing this wall of worry.
When you change the interest rate paradigm as quickly as we did, you will catch people offside.
The consumer will probably slow down a bit in the second half of the year.
You look at what's happening in the US, policymakers are still grappling to see where they are in terms of growth, inflation, etc.
Economic policy is not in the driver's seat anymore.
This is Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene, Jonathan Farrow, and Lisa Abramowitz.
Good morning, everyone. Jonathan Farrow, Lisa Abramowitz, and Tom Keene on radio, on television. Not a boring Monday. Really interesting. Deeper into the bank earnings season. And with that, also a huge snapshot this week on the just under 7% mortgage. John, unspoken this week, there's a lot of housing data, and it does, as Andrew Balls was saying about credit conditions tightening, you really wonder where that dynamic will fold in with the banking dynamic and as well commercial real estate.
So let's pick up on the banking dynamic and sit on that for a moment. We're all following the data, and we've said repeatedly it's not CPI and payrolls, it's about data elsewhere. So let's go to the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve give you some data on just how many banks are coming to them to borrow funds. That gives you some idea of how much stress is in the system. That's stabilised. That was Thursday. Friday, we had some bank lending data also from the Federal Reserve. Also, starting to see just some growth, some bounce back there. That's good news. You put that together with the big banks, they look super profitable, widely expected. Now it's to the small banks. I want to know about lending standards. Then we get some data in early May. The Senior Loan Officer Opinion Survey, that's key for the Federal Reserve. And we return back to the question that dominates economics in the Federal Reserve right now. To what extent is the stress of the last month a substitute for rate hikes for the Federal Reserve? And slowly, we're going to find out the answer to that.
And part of this is back and forth
Nelly.
between financial stability
Hi,
and what
Nelly.
we
Good
usually
morning.
talk about, folks, monetary policy. David Balin joining us in a moment with interest. But all of it is the tea leaves of where we are. The Bramocam is on Abramowitz as she looks at Charles Schwab, San Francisco. What do you see, Lisa?
Well, this is sort of interesting. It's sort of a motley picture here because on one hand, the earnings per share beat. They came out with a first quarter adjusted EPS of 93 cents versus the estimate of 90 cents. Their net interest revenue also above expectations, 2.77 billion versus 2.74 billion. A lot of positives, and yet their deposits came in under 325.7 versus 325.9. So here's the question right now. They also decide to pause active share buyback program, and that is setting the shares significantly lower in real time. How do some of these firms manage at a time when people are skeptical of
Why did
whether
everyone
they're bang
leave?
for their buck? They want the interest.
I
and it's not clear. where they get it.
I left Tracy, dude. I literally left Tracy, and I kicked Lindsay out because she wasn't doing anything. She wasn't helping me. She wasn't doing anything. They didn't leave. I left them.
So that's Schwab saying, we've got use of cash. We're going to distribute to shareholders given all this turmoil.
The stock has been absolutely hammered. We're down
I don't need
39%
people to hold me
year-to-date.
back
So
in life.
That stock has got caught up in all of this in ways that sometimes I have to say, Lisa, didn't really make much sense.
Agreed.
On some days where it was getting absolutely hammered, but the stock's been absolutely hammered year to date, and we're down a couple of tenths of 1% of the pre-market. Let's call it unchanged
Bouncing
now.
all over.
Let's call it unchanged, Lisa, on Schwab.
Yeah, it's been bouncing all over. The larger story is, are we going to see this bifurcation between the haves and the have-nots, the biggest and the not so big, or the second tier? And are we seeing that in real time? We go back to...
I am glad I left
State
Tracy.
State Street shares down significantly.
I am
in
very
Taiwan.
glad I
Morgan
left
Stanley
her.
analysts see BlackRock's assets under management climbing to 15,000 in the next couple, 15 trillion.
Yeah,
excuse me,
sex
in
is
the
in
next couple of
everything
years.
in life.
So at what point is this really just...
Sex is not
survival of
everything.
the
I can
fittest,
get
survival of
sex.
the largest that we're seeing increasingly throughout the banking sector.
It's not. It's not. That doesn't mean shit to me.
On Friday, Wells Fargo on Friday, Citigroup on Friday.
Lindsay
Tom
was
Allen,
not a
Bank of
partner.
America later this week. We get B of A numbers tomorrow. For the broader economy, though, it goes beyond those big names. It just comes down to one thing. Are we going to see a severe tightening of lending standards at these smaller regional banks, which will have an outsized effect on the broader economy, Tom? And that remains to be seen. And I don't think just because we've had good numbers from JP Morgan, Citi and Wells Fargo, that the coast is clear on that front. There are a number of regional banks reporting this week and next week, which will offer us a clearer picture of things.
And part of its rate of change, I mean, is liquidity, solvency, and things. Is Mike Wilson said at Morgan Stanley, this adverb suddenly shows up. I don't know how suddenly it is for Charles Schwab, but John, we're modeling out off the Bloomberg pre-pandemic. They did $5 billion in operating income, OI, and basically they're doing a double on that out to 2024, 2025. This is a profitable company. You know, the operating income margin, John, is 40 cents on the dollar. Jamie Dimon would love to do that. I mean, really, really love to do that. So I'm not so worried about Schwab as some of these smaller, less visible banks where there's a real mystery.
And the real people who've got to worry right now are the people that depended on these regional banks to borrow money for banking services, Lisa, and we're going to see how that develops, Tom, in the coming months.
Let's do this. Let's do it just because of time, and we've got a really important guest with us right now. John, I'm just going to look quickly at the data and start off with dollars.
I'm gonna look at my data.
After the challenges last week.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief as
Oh
well.
my
Tom.
gosh, I made how much money?
1/10 of 1%. It's a slow start to an otherwise busy week. Lots of bank earnings, lots of Fed speak. Lisa's going to guide you through all of that over the next couple of days. The 10-year yield higher by 3 basis points. The 10-year right now at 3.54. The euro against the US dollar just short of 110 after breaking that level to 110.76 on Friday. Tom, we're back down to about 109.78.
One of the great voices of Wall Street, counseling patience in a reach out 3 years, is David Balin, Chief Investment Officer, Global Head of Investments at Citi Global Wealth, who had a certain courage through the pandemic to say, Stay in the market. David, you lead your essay. It is not easy to be
The longest road
now.
in the
How do
world
you
to
have
walk
confidence to
is from
say
Cape Town, South Africa,
Well, right now, Tom, we're sort of 2/3 through the
to
market, and what's standing between us and
Magadan, Russia.
is the recognition of what earnings are going to be.
Bro, you got to go through like
Recession
Iraq
that the Fed
though.
anticipates and is actually talked about now actually occurs. We think that earnings, are going to go down.
No, you got to go
probably
through
between
Syria.
7 and 10%, much less. than
Nah, you got to go through Syria,
are
dog.
expecting in terms of they're actually expecting growth.
You got to go through
And the second
fucking
thing that
Syria.
I've just talked about, which I think is
Dude,
critical, is that we
it's like
already
the
see
worst.
further tightening due to bank lending standards, and we see it across several data sources. First, we already see that banks are lending less, that the actual amount of outstanding loans are going down. Second, we see the reporting by companies of the fact that lending standards are already tighter. And third, we actually are going to see that the ability and capacity of small and medium-sized banks to lend is going to go down as a result of almost $500 billion of deposits moving into treasuries and money market funds over the last 3 months. So these are already constraints on an economy that is already slowing.
David, we've been talking all morning about the dispersion,
All right.
sort of disagreement between bonds and stocks. Bonds seem to be pricing in rate cuts on the heels of exactly what you're talking about, credit restriction that really just escalates throughout the year. And you see stock traders kind of shrugging that off and saying things are still all copacetic. Who do you think is right?
Well, the bond market looks to be right for the moment. What's interesting is that, bonds have rallied extraordinarily, and you've talked about this for the last, 5 weeks. The 2-year and the 10-year have moved, yields have moved dramatically lower. The stock market is anticipating and saying, well, that's great. The discount rate for stocks has actually gone down. Bravo. But really what's happening is that the bond market is saying we have to be much more vigilant about where their earnings are going to go down and where they're going to go up. So companies that have moats around them, different technology companies and other, industries where you can see both margin growth and revenue growth should be rewarded. But you've seen, the bank stocks in particular, and some of the ones you've been discussing this morning do poorly. And the industry averages, the S&P and stuff has been largely range bound since October of last year. So what we have to see is this digesting of what really is going to happen with earnings in order to be able to look into 2025.
Yes.
And when we do, I think
Delicious
we see a
coffee.
substantial
All right, let me get ready from
again,
the day,
two-thirds
dude.
of
I
a
got to
way
walk
to a
from
bear
Mally.
market in equities.
Earlier this year, people were talking about going outside the U.S. to Europe in particular as a place, particularly because the ECB was still raising rates, potentially much more than the Fed was poised to do so this year. Do you still see that as the narrative that could drive investment theses, or do you think the U.S. looks like a better place to park simply because it will go through the cycle quicker and there will be more pain on the heels of some of the rate hikes elsewhere?
It's a great question. If I had to predict one thing that we would be writing, just a month or two from now, it would be that, emerging market exposure is going to become, or non-U.S. exposure is going to become extremely important. Right now we are near, the third highest dollar peak ever. We haven't come very much off of that. And valuations for non-U.S. stocks, and especially emerging market stocks, are at all-time lows. So if you're a U.S. investor today, you would like to buy companies, right, in industries outside of the U.S. to take advantage of both the disproportionate devaluation of those shares, as well as
That's
the
what
fact
he's
that the dollar is
saying.
going to fall. I think it's going to be a major source of income for us, for profits for us over the course of the next
Holy
2
crap.
or 3 years.
I'm raking in about 1 million Elon coins every 24 hours.
LVMH, now the biggest company
That's
in
pretty good,
Europe.
dude.
You've got Hermes, great numbers from both of them off the back of the reopening in the China story. David also
Let it
mentioned that
ride.
tightly defined range on the S&P 500. Let's just take the year-to-date range. Lisa,
Here, let's reset the
3,800
miners.
-ish at the low end, 4,200 at the top end, and very, very close to the upper end now of that tightly defined range.
But the battle underneath is so intense, the battle for leadership.
The churn.
The churn. Well, I mean, it's basically this question of, well, how long can tech lead? And is
She
this
hates
idea
him.
that the Fed's going to cut rates going to benefit some of the more interest rate
She hates
sensitive
him, you can
areas,
tell.
Or is this going to be different? Is this time different?
That should go on a promo. The
What?
battle for leadership, that movie voice.
I'm watching
movie trailer voiceover.
I'm trying. Auditioning.
In Lisa's newsletter, Toxic Brew. Could you see it written up in
What's that
Toxic
song?
Brew?
It's like 9 alarms on here.
It's fantastic. The battle for leadership.
Good morning.
The battle for leadership.
Nice.
Subscribe.
All right, it's Happy Monday.
Subscribe.
Yes,
Should we
indeed.
promote the daily newsletter now?
Sure, yeah.
Let's do
I'm
that.
listening.
Daily subscribe. Bloomberg.com/surveillance.
Bloomberg.
We're done.
Wait, no, seriously. Can I
read it.
sell
It's
this
actually
thing?
really enjoyable.
I don't have any equity in this thing, but it's got great links. It's not just, blah, 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 blah. It's like, look at this, look at that.
Well,
it's important.
There are
It's a time
themes
saver.
that go through
If anybody
all
out
of
there-
our discussions with our guests that are fantastic.
If anybody
and
out
really
there
highlight the main debates. It's why it's
did
important.
Picoin with me,
You're finding
and you
rhyme and
didn't
reason
do
and
the
chaos that is
KYC,
spoken.
please do the KYC. I'm begging you. I'm
I
begging
just
you.
have
Like,
very
I don't know what I
and
have
Steve
to do
Major. Just saw him
to get
walk
these
into-
people to do
into the office.
KYC.
Very cool. Steve Major from HSBC joining us in about 20 minutes from now. I also
Like, I'm actually begging people to fucking do this. And I don't beg for nothing, but if you're in Pi, you would understand why I'm begging people to fucking do the
Complexity of
KYC.
this rocket deep into space is not like Apollo. It's different.
We'll make time for it next on Bloomberg.
Keeping you up to date with news from around the world. With the first word, I'm Lisa Mateo. Now let's get to that rocket. SpaceX set to launch its massive deep space rocket Starship into space this morning. These are live pictures. Now, if successful,
Elon?
this flight will be a critical milestone in the company's ambitions for manned missions to Mars. NASA also plans to use
Elon
the
loves
same
to say
spacecraft
it.
to return to the moon. Once operational, Starship will be the most powerful rocket ever built. First Republic Bank has lost nearly 90% of its market value this year. Its stockpile of low-interest loans is being blamed. Now, many of them have been to wealthy home buyers and property investors with high incomes and good credit scores who
Hi,
have
Nelly. Good
years to
morning.
start paying them down. The mortgages are performing well, but the low rates and delayed repayments hurt their value. Analysts are estimating a big drop in deposits. And another sign of mounting pressure on the banking industry. Barclays is responding to a slowdown in deal-making and capital markets businesses by cutting about 100 roles in its investment banking group. The London-based lender already let go of roughly 200 positions from the same division in November. And Merck is set to buy biotech company Prometheus Biosciences for about $10.8 billion. The agreed price is a 75% premium to the target's closing price on Friday. Merck is looking to bolster its research pipeline and strengthen its portfolio of autoimmune drugs as it faces a losing patent later this decade. Global news powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. I'm Lisa Mateo, and this is Bloomberg.
Lots happening on Wall Street.
I'm quite encouraged. The center is holding.
Need to catch up?
This is Bloomberg Wall Street Week. I'm David Weston.
We've got the information and insights
A lot of these areas still have very, very good valuations.
from businesses most influential and instrumental.
It's knocking it out of the ballpark.
Now's not a great time to be speculative. It's time for a pivot. We're talking about a significant hit to our standard of living.
Bloomberg Wall Street Week, live tonight with replays all weekend on Bloomberg Television and Radio. In a multi-trillion-dollar industry, there's a lot of ground to cover.
We indeed have a rally.
Oh,
Getting
shit.
a lot of dividends. We're talking income.
We'll show you what's happening in
I gotta get
ETFs
ready for
like
work,
nowhere
dude.
else. Bloomberg ETF IQ, Monday on Bloomberg.
I gotta head out soon.
Like soap opera, because when I first made the offer,
the response was...
All right, everything is mining correctly.
Poison pill. So they were like, hell no, you can't buy Twitter. We'd rather die. We'd like chew on...
When I went to sleep, it was 47 million. Now it's at 48 million.
Yes, and then they said, no, you must buy us. Gun to the head. You have to buy us. I'm like, are you the same people who said you'd rather die than be bored?
That was Elon Musk there. I guess that $44 billion offer looked a whole lot more attractive as the year grew older and tech got absolutely hammered. That exchange between Elon Musk and the BBC last week, must-watch television. You have to find that interview and watch the whole thing. Welcome to the program. Elon Musk doing a series
Gun to the head, they made him buy it.
This morning, away from Twitter for very, very good reason, Tom, and onto SpaceX, which is doing some phenomenally interesting things.
They're doing interesting things, and it's not. I got to really be careful here, folks, in that there's a lot of citizens up in space, and then there's the science of this, which, John, is what propulsion do you need to get comfortably to the moon?
Why is he asking this stuff? Like John is a rocket scientist.
In the Statue of Liberty. And it has 30x number.
I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry, but Bloomberg is fucking the most delusional billionaire next to
Going
Alki.
up into space. It's an orbital flight to test. There's no men on board.
He doesn't know anything about what he's talking about.
But this is the science. When you hear rich guys say, "Wow, Elon Musk technology," this is what they're talking about. Not
What is he talking about? He is a rich guy.
With their employees.
And Tom, the focus shifting back to deep space exploration.
What
is
is
that right?
Bloomberg saying? He is a rich guy.
Away from
Oh my
few decades.
gosh.
The walk to the moon is 240,000 miles. I don't have memorized the distance to Mars, but what's important is you don't go in a straight line. You know, it's not like, in the cartoons where you go from Earth to Mars. You got to get out there and do a big, big, long curve. Matt Damon's done it, no one else. You get out there and you do a big, long curve, and it takes huge propulsion to move weight up. And if you're going up in a pup tent, Lisa...
I don't know about that. We don't know about that. We don't know that's real.
To really understand
We don't.
this,
It's all speculation.
SpaceX's president came out and said that this is truly a flight test, and the real goal is to not blow up the launch pad.
Yes.
That is the success.
Okay, here's my childhood. It was fractured. What'd you look at? Dad had
Yo.
slides or that. My father would have slides of the family,
morning.
and about 10 minutes in, he'd put it in an Explorer rocket blowing up at the launch pad. He thought that was fun. And I'm sorry, folks, there's some real tension
Welcome.
to this liftoff today.
Welcome to the
This
stream. This is
isn't
the coffee
normal,
with
is my
So Ed's gonna
yours
put his hand
truly,
in a second,
Scuff
Tom. In
Jim
fact, he will tell you
Carrey.
This is a test attempt, so you're going to see potentially a lot of stop-started through the morning. And I don't think I still don't think I've really got a time for this. I think maybe 9:20 Eastern. I think that was the last thing I heard
Yeah, I
about
went
an hour
from
from
8
now.
to 9:20, and they had to wait for Ed to wake up and get his coffee.
Well, he's
in
awake
San
now.
Francisco. Ed Ludlow with us right now, the star of Bloomberg Technology on the astronaut.
This one is a.
Seriously, Ed,
This
what's
at
the
24.
risk to
Well,
this
this one
launch?
peaks at like 30 something.
The risk is that it's a very expensive
I'm running on
test.
a
It's most profound.
3060.
It proves that the technology works as a launch system. You talked about Saturn V, Starship.
It's
in
not
its most
ideal,
complete form has
but
twice
it's
the
what I
cost,
acquired at the time.
£16.7 million to Saturn V's 7.6 million. So
As
it's
long as
profound.
it's mining.
But you guys kind of nailed it. They just want to know it can get.
I have
off the
other
ground
cards
without
running.
the launch tower.
I mean, they're really
This one
important.
actually
And
need to
what the
reset
great
because
thing
I'm
here
not
is
earning
30
right
years
now.
ago, it was assumed to go to Mars, we needed some form of fusion launch, a nuclear propulsion engine. That's not the case here, is it?
No, largely methane powered. Methane mixed with oxygen is the propellant. And you make an interesting point.
Methane.
Elon Musk did a
The
Twitter
fuck
Spaces
is
last night for
methane?
subscribers only, where he spent an hour trying to sell
Why do
it
English
very
people
low,
have to do that?
all they wanna know
Why do you
is
Brits
that
have to
the
do
system
that? We
can
have
get
to
off
make
the
shit
ground
sound
detached. You're not gonna recover either the booster or the
extra.
spacecraft.
Aluminum. Like, no, bro, it's
It
aluminum.
even gets off the ground.
Aluminum.
The Starship spacecraft will hopefully reach orbit, but when it falls back down to Earth, it will
Fuck
splash
this guy.
140 miles off the coast of Hawaii.
Fuck this
and
guy.
not be recovered.
No,
this
fuck
is a
this
system
guy.
that's been
Fuck
worked
this
on
guy in
since
the face.
2005, Tom, and it goes back to this idea that Elon Musk isn't always accurate with his timelines, but he does get there in the end. So this is kind of a big proof of concept moment.
Speak regular,
this
bud.
was the territory
We'll like
of
you
a
anyway.
federally funded kind of program, and suddenly we have a private company doing this. What is the business case to get a rocket to go to Mars?
Well, you have to remember that Musk's ultimate goal is to make.
I don't have time for a shower. A shower tomorrow.
You guys were discussing Mars, but that
2
is
weeks from now.
ultimately the goal, and there the business model is not clear. What SpaceX has done is change the economics, right? This took $5 billion to develop. Saturn V, by comparison, in 2020 dollar terms, took $50 billion to develop, a factor of 10,
All right, it's
10
breakfast
greater.
time.
The
It's
business model
5:22. It's my
interesting.
breakfast time.
In
I
the
have to
first
stay on
instance,
schedule.
There's a NASA contract, about $3 billion.
If I don't stay on schedule,
Starship to get to the
I'm gonna have
moon
a
as
bad
the
day.
moon landing system.
Yeah.
That dollar comes from the public. And then internally for SpaceX, the idea is that the payload capacity of Starship is so much greater, it's a more efficient means of getting Starlink into orbit and deployed in constellation at a cost that's
it's
much
backy
cheaper than
fast
currently
time,
doing
dude.
it.
Ed, for those who like science fiction, I remember that the big
Science
challenge
fiction.
was always getting back from
Double
Mars. If you
feature?
could get to Mars, you couldn't carry enough fuel with you to get off of Mars to get back to Earth. So is that discussed at all in terms of
A
returning? Or is this just
transsexual
basically, let's see what we can do,
transvestite
and then that might help
from
the quest?
Transylvania.
For Tom Keane to ask me that question, not you. In the first instance, the step that's missing is even post-orbit, the long-term plan is for SpaceX to launch Starship, refuel it in orbit, have
Good
a
morning.
vehicle already in orbit to couple with and refuel it and get it to Mars. To your question, they have to launch with such capacity that whatever they're sending to Mars has to give them the infrastructure that localized fueling can be established for the return journey. And you know, Musk has talked about this pretty openly, right? He wants to die on Mars, not on impact. But you also don't want it to be a one-way ticket. And that's a big part of the strategy that we're years away from getting to. Even last night, you know, Musk admitted we are many years away from Starship making regular orbital flight just outside of Earth's atmosphere. So Mars is a very distant goal at this point.
Amazing, just amazing. Ed, you
Amazing,
catch up with us
amazing,
again
amazing,
at
just
9:20
amazing. Let's move on this morning.
9:20 Eastern time.
You
When
hear
we
him?
expect that test attempt.
Maybe.
Amazing, just amazing.
Maybe we should catch up
Amazing.
regardless. Ed Ludlow, thank you, sir, on the West Coast on the latest. Truly expert. And Lisa,
He always does that to brush off,
There you go.
dude.
Well, I love
He's
this
low-key a
stuff. It's so
dick.
interesting because the one-way ticket idea
He's low-key a
isn't very
dick.
lucrative, right?
Like,
I mean,
on
it's
this show,
basically, if you're gonna have a business
he's a
model
dick. He's a
and you're
dick to
basically sending
Bloomberg.
people
This
to
guy's a
never
dick to
return.
everyone.
I mean,
It's sort of like
He presses everyone. He low-key presses everyone. Low-key presses everyone. Bloomberg just tolerates it. He's this nice old guy that started a flippin' network and allows this guy to be on the flippin' show.
Mars is 150 million miles away.
Look at that boy.
The scope and
Yee,
scale, all
Becky
of it
fast.
we really can't imagine. And that's a starting point of how far away Saturn and Jupiter are.
when you see military aircraft refuel in the air, I'm truly impressed by that still. And that's been going on for a long time. Can you imagine trying to do that in space?
Sounds like a child.
In orbital speed.
so cool.
Yeah.
I mean,
He sounds like
you
a
think
flippin'
about it,
child.
It takes, what, 9 months going at the current speeds to get to Mars, to be able to get that amount of fuel in space and then come up with the infrastructure to refuel on Mars. Look, it's all pie in the sky kind of stuff, but it's not. And that's the reason why it's so intriguing.
I think the important thing is you got to get home. That's the hard part.
No, you gotta do the math. It comes down to math at the end of the day.
Everything was focused on the
What are they
main
talking
thing,
about?
Going around the moon.
It's literally just
Like
math.
was in the first trip up there while the other two went down, they had to get them home, and that was really what they focused on.
Up next, in the next hour, we'll do markets for you.
Most
Campbell
delusional
Dempsey
shit I've
about
ever
an hour from
watched.
now. Brian Levitt from Invesco.
Why do I watch this every morning? I love it.
BNP Paribas looking
Why
for-
wouldn't I watch somebody as delusional as I
It
am?
feels like a downer, doesn't it? After what we just discussed, we're going to talk markets in the next hour. Steve Major in the building from HSBC on fixed income, joining Bloomberg Surveillance.
West Ham.
Next, very, very cool. Equity futures on the S&P 500 just about unchanged. Yields a little bit higher by a couple of basis points. Your 10-year, 3.54. Back in New York altogether, and good to be back. This is Bloomberg.
Dude, it's all sweet lies with a laugh. They just laugh. They laugh. They're like, ha ha ha, you're gonna lose some money today. They don't give a fuck. They're all rich. They are rich. They don't care. That's why I watch. Just to know. Just to know. Just remind myself I'm always gonna be fucked. According to Reddit, you just can't rally people to fucking invest in this stuff. I don't know. Isn't that what Reddit taught us? Wait, wasn't I supposed to cop some sneakers today? Is there a sneaker drop? Is there a sneaker drop today, dude? Or that's tomorrow. Oh! These are being released today, but that's not something I want. No. No, these are being released tomorrow. No, on the 20th. These are being released on the 20th. I'm copping these for sure. These are for sure cop. StockX.
We're investing in a lot
That's an easy flip, my dude. 275 easy flip.
That much easier, that much more compelling, whether it's price check, browsing inventory in the store, so that we can really make that experience as convenient.
They're 140.
Convenient, simple. That's sort of what people have needed in the age of COVID. Is that here to stay, or do we go back when finally
These are 140.
The pandemic will be behind us in some way? Do our changing shopping habits go back again?
What's really interesting about retail in my 20-plus experience is that convenience never reverts itself. Now, the form of convenience
Look at
has
those.
shifted, whereas, say, in 2000, 2010, a lot of convenience was driven by more stores
I
nearby.
could easily
Now
sell
it's
them to PD
stores
Plastic.
In addition to digital.
PD
There's nothing
Plastic would
closer
100%
than the
wear
phone in
them.
your hand.
He'd be like, girl, those are fly.
Business Week Radio. Live weekday afternoons at 3 p.m. Eastern.
We got a little bit of talking.
Are you guys ready? Harnessing the power of Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Messer and Tim Stenton.
Oh yeah, these are tomorrow.
News from the worlds of business, technology, politics, and more.
How does the Fed play into this and what the Fed does potentially?
This is so exhausting and this is so all-encompassing.
Listen on Bloomberg Radio and streaming on YouTube and Bloomberg Originals.
Those are for sure cop.
Bloomberg Surveillance, good morning. I'm Lisa Bramwitz and Tom King. John Farrow preparing for Space Hour here.
All right, guys, it is 5:30. I love and appreciate you. I got to get ready for my day. I have a few more things to do.
They call it a nerd out.
You guys have a great day.
I'm really fired up.
I don't think there was really much other way to describe it.
But
Everybody have a great day, dude.
9 o'clock hour. Seriously, we'll have some.
I'm gonna go. I gotta go make movies.
On a technological basis.